Good morning, sir. You have been working in Northeast India on various languages, especially in Thai, Singpho, and other languages. It has been already 25 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
What was the motivation? What was the inspiration?
Well, so I had been learning the Thai language of Bangkok, Thailand.
Right.
And then in middle part of 1996, I got the opportunity to study as a visiting student in a university in southern Thailand. And I joined the classes of first and second year students that were entirely taught in Thai language.
Right.
But it was interesting because even though I was learning the standard Thai language, which you get on TV and in newspapers, actually the local people spoke several other languages.
Right.
And also at the same time, my wife and I, we decided to take a holiday in India.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my teachers, it was a subject called Thai dialectology, different types of Thai language. He said, "You're going to India, why don't you go to Northeast India?" And I had already become aware of two things.
Mm-hmm.
One was that the people in Northeast India, Thai people, are using different scripts.
Mm-hmm.
I was aware that there was no font available for these scripts that could be easily used,
Right.
what we now call true type fonts. And secondly, I was aware that the Diahong language had ceased to be spoken as a mother tongue a long time back, but people were trying to revive it. And yesterday in the conference, we actually saw a poster that's based on an analysis of the reviving language. It's quite exciting for me to see.
Yeah.
So, primary object was actually to learn something about the revival of Thai Ahom language.
Okay.
But when I got into the Ahom area, so you might be knowing that here in Northeast India, if you know somebody, you will surely meet eventually everybody else. Because one person will meet you, will introduce you to another, to another, to another, and eventually you'll know everybody.
Right.
And although I don't know everybody in Assam by any means, I do by now know a lot, or at least a lot know me. And so the first person I met was Nobin Cham, who I hope to meet tomorrow.
Okay.
And he took me to meet one Professor Sondra Burua, C.K. Burua, botany professor from this Gauhati University. He introduced me by phone to Ottur Borgohain in Dibrugarh. And when we reached Dibrugarh, Ottur Borgohain, I asked him to take me to the Ahom village.
Okay.
So he took me and my wife on a tourist visit to Saraigao, to the Ronghar, to those various Gorgon Palace, all the famous sites of the Ahom community, but we didn't visit any Ahom village.
Okay.
So next day I said to him, "Can we visit Ahom village?" He said no. He said, "If you are going to study Thai language, first you have to learn the spoken Thai language of the Thai Pake, or Pakyao, as the Assamese sometimes call it." So instead he took me to Nampake village.
Okay.
There I found a living language that had not been described or satisfactorily documented. So there had been a Thai scholar, Dr. Banto, who came, young lady, young woman, well, she was probably in her mid-30s when she first came to Assam in 1954, which would have been very difficult at the time. And moving around by bus and by walking, she had visited these Thai villages and had recorded some things, and had also made a dictionary. But in general, stories, songs, mostly these had not been documented. So that's why I started on Thai.
Yeah. So that's how you started.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, you started documenting stories and all, and you say that you were asked to learn that language.
Mm-hmm.
So did you learn that language?
Oh yes. So, and I was back in Nampake village 1 week or a little more than 1 week back, and again I can communicate there. If I would stay there for a week or two, more of the words which I have not used would come back, and I would most probably remember some things like, for example, the word for, and I must get this right, the word for wife in Thai Pake, it is something like me, and the word for mother is me. Tune is different, and also vowel is a little different. I don't produce it fully correctly, but if you get this mixed up, of course it's a bit of, because in Thai Aiton, me means wife, and me actually would be interpreted as mother. So it's, because these words are quite similar, but historically quite different. There is, so I'm not perfect at it, but yeah, I can communicate in some way.
Yeah. I have seen on your Facebook post several manuscripts you have collected in your field work. So, where did you get all those, and what have you done with those?
Well, so in terms of manuscripts, we need to divide between the manuscripts of the Thai Ahom on the one hand, and the mostly written on this Hasipat, which we saw that day, yesterday, day before, in the anthem of this university. Hasipat is mentioned. And distinguish those from the manuscripts of the 4 or 5 Thai groups who are maintaining their language, which is mostly Thai Pake, Thai Aiton, and of course the Thai Kamti. So these are 2 different scripts, and the manuscripts, the contents of manuscripts are different. So in the case of the Ahom, what we did is we made a project with the British Library, funded through the Endangered Archives program, and if you type into Google search or any search EAP 373 Ahom, you'll get the link to this project. And those manuscripts are all there together with metadata collected by members of the community, particularly Medini Matap Mohan. And those manuscripts are all there, and they can be accessed and studied by people. Now, with the manuscripts that were in the villages, Pake, Aiton, etc., I photographed them, but as yet the archiving is still happening. But I'm hoping in the next 1 or 2 years, archiving is a big and slow process.
That's true.
I'm hoping that all these will get put somewhere where at least they will be secure. It's also, we don't have a YouTube equivalent that I'm aware of where you can put photos easily that people can access them.
I have some suggestion on that.
Oh, good.
That
photos and sound files.
Exactly.
Yes.
Mukurtu. We have been working on Boro and Dimasa. So
yes.
Mukurtu platform is a wonderful platform.
Yes.
That you can discuss with UNT, Christina Washan, Professor Christina, and others.
Let me do that because archives are not all that suitable for community members to access things.
Exactly.
It takes a long time to get into some of the archives, and YouTube for videos is very easy. And we want something equally easy for photographs and for, photographs of manuscripts, but also of people and maybe buildings. So for example, in the Thai Pake village the other day, we were looking at 2 photos taken by Dr. Bantop and marked as being taken in the year 98. Now that means 98 in the Buddhist calendar, which is 2498, which is equivalent to what we now call 1957. So you have to know which era you are talking about.
Exactly.
And the year 100 or the year 0 would be 1957. So this means these photos were taken in 1955, which is a long time ago.
Right.
And they show things and people that community wanted to discuss. So I know that some of the photos I have are taken of people who have passed away, buildings that are no longer there, manuscripts that have been destroyed. All of these should be archived. The problem is, see, today everybody has got a good mobile phone.
Exactly.
Actually, it's more interesting to take a photo of the people taking photos than what they are taking a photo of, because hundreds, like somebody says, can I have a snap with you, and 20 people will take a photo of it.
Right. Now, that's fine. Now, I have seen you, doing several field work in various places of Northeast India, and I got an opportunity to go one day in Karbi Anglong with you. So now, there were several challenges, I believe. So, how did you do that? Can you just share some experience?
Well, so the challenges of fieldwork. So the first thing is Assam is not, or Northeast, has not been as easy to get around in the past as it is today. And it is everything is easier when you have more money. So when I was a student and catching buses, it was uncomfortable and long because, okay, there are those express buses that fly, but village buses are slow. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, once you get to the village, people are busy, people are doing this and that, whether they can spare time to discuss with you, and especially if we are trying to discover the meaning of things, it's a very slow process.
Right.
And you need to find people who intuitively and instinctively understand the importance of doing this work. That they can see that, yes, we need to make these recordings and we also need to know what they mean so that in the future we will still have that information preserved. But it's very difficult to see that this is a priority today when many people know the meaning and it is more important to go and plough the field or go to school or whatever it is that you are doing. Later, people will regret if they don't get the meaning out, but it is a slow process. Plus, I have learned that we really need to involve members of the community in these villages more in this work so that they take it on as belonging to themselves. And no data belongs to me. And that's why I'm always willing to share my data. And I never think anybody who says, we should not share the data, I think this is a very wrong thinking.
So you in Assam, what are the places you have visited for the field work?
Yeah, so we can say that some work has been done in Gauhati because there are people living here, especially the Thai Pondits, Nobin Sham and Bihung, Gauhati, who I did a lot of discussions with in the early days. But apart from that, the field work begins really from after Kaziranga. There are a couple of villages that I have visited on the north side, near Narayanpur, amongst the Thai Khamti, but mostly on the south side. And if I try to give you all the names of the villages in Gauhati, let me see, what villages, what districts have I visited? Golagat, Jorhat, Sipsagar, Saraidiao, which is a new district, Dibrugarh and Tinsukia district, Margarita area, and then within Arunachal, I have certainly visited places in Changlang and more recently in Longding district, and I have never made a research visit or to Namsai, the Khamti area in Lohit, and of course I should, but travel is
very
a challenge.
Yeah, challenge. So now I come to the point, there are so many less spoken languages in Northeast India, and we say some of them are already endangered or some are already not spoken. What is your view on those languages?
Well, so my view at the moment is somewhat informed by the fact that we are sitting here in this Northeast Indian Linguistics Society conference, and we are seeing some of the research that is being done. So yesterday we saw a very detailed and very careful study of a small language called Maring. This is by Kanchoa Suzy, and how it is different from one village to another. And she gave us hundreds of examples, too many to even remember. But what it showed is that even when we think about how many languages there are, within those languages still there is more difference to be studied.
Right.
Yesterday also, I was talking with someone who has made some research on kinship terms, mother, father, etc. in Wancho.
Missing.
No, but this was in Wancho. Okay. And she has collected from the lowest village of the Wancho that's actually in Assam. Whereas I had been in one of the highest villages, almost to Burma. And between those two, there will be significant differences. But actually, we need to understand what is the diversity within something like Wancho. When you get to the Thangsha area, so these are mostly in Changlang district or across the border in Myanmar, Burma. There, each of the different language varieties has got a name. So there is Tuglai Thangsha, there is Mashang or Moshang Thangsha, there is Shanke or Shetu Thangsha, Jolim Thangsha, etc. More than 50 of them, probably, at least more than 40 in India and at least 30 more on the Burma side. And so it's easy to say, yes, now I'm going to go and study Tuglai because we can name it. Whereas when it's villages, people might think, oh, this is a Marin village, this is a Marin village, they speak the same. So this kind of diversity must be endangered because we are talking about sometimes the population of a single language variety might be several hundred, might be 1,000 or 2,000 if we're lucky, but usually not more than that and sometimes less.
Right.
And so what will happen over time is that these people may converge to one variety. And okay, I understand why they will do that, or they may shift to Assamese or even Hindi, which is happening. So, but this current level of diversity, we really are in a hurry to understand it.
Right.
And we won't be able to understand everything. It simply won't happen because there's too much to do and not enough people to do it.
Exactly.
And you need to have speakers of each one of these languages doing this. There simply are not. So what can be done will be done. We know a lot more today than we used to, and at least we know how much more there is to learn.
Exactly. That's great. So now, Professor Tamuli, Dr. Mark Post, and you started, initiating NILS, Northeast Indian Linguistic Society, back in 2005 or so. What role can this society play in kind of language revitalization or language documentation in Northeast?
Well, so NILS is primarily an academic undertaking. It's primarily about scholars who are working on linguistics meeting, comparing their expertise, presenting their information, sharing information, and things like this. Primarily, it is about that. And primarily, the academic work of studying languages is not the same as the work of language revitalization or helping languages and communities to keep their language going. But it will help. So, for example, one of the things I have got involved in is work to ensure that some of the smaller scripts, both those that are traditional like the Thai Hom and the other scripts of the Thai language, the Tolik Thai, and also the newly created scripts like Wancho and Thangsha, that these are properly working and that they've been accepted into Unicode, but working to ensure that they work properly when people want to type in them. Now, on one hand, this isn't going to help spoken language at all.
Right.
But if young people see that they can write their own language in whatever script they choose, they might be more inspired. Now, yesterday I also attended a talk about Nukde, where the young people were asked, and the young people all said, yes, we value our Nukde language, but then they are not using it, or they are decreasingly using it. They are tending to use more and more Hindi and even English. That's in Hirock district. So maybe if we, as foreign scholars and other scholars, show an interest in their language, this may help and give the people the help they need. So if somebody comes to me and says, we need some help, I don't know, making a dictionary, then we can give that help.
Right.
My colleague Callum Parker Van Dam is particularly strong in dictionary making. He can give that help. I do, to some extent. Of course, I can't necessarily pay for the printing of books. That's another issue. But but the specific help for which I might have the skill that is not present here, such as negotiating with the Unicode committees, this I will do. But ultimately, the survival of language depends on the community.
That's very true. So now...
and it depends on parents speaking to their children in their own language. This is an important point. When children go to school in Assam, they will learn Assamese. You need not worry about that. They will learn it. You don't need to speak Assamese to them. You need to speak your own language to them.
That's true. So, Gauhati University and Professor Jyoti Tamuli has represented the entire their contribution, the institute, the university and its contribution is immense.
Yes.
So I just want you to say a few words on
that. So first of all, the Northeast Indian Linguistics Society would not exist, and these conferences we have been doing would not exist but for the long-term support and vision of Professor Jyoti Tamuli and the vision and support that he has been given by his wife, Professor Anita Tamuli. These two we can't do without. Because the job of a good teacher includes making it possible for students to do the things that the students will do and let them shine. And so one of the things that Professor Tamuli encouraged, I used to come here and do some kinds of discussions with students, but after a couple of years, he encouraged students to go with me into the field. The first was one, Prafulla Basumatary. I think you maybe know him. He is one of the most admirable people here in terms of his linguistic skills and his yes, and then came Polachnat, equal. But these people, they came to the field, and we did face some difficulties. You know, with Prafulla that time, we had to walk through the flood to get back to the house where we had stored our things, and then walk them out again. October 2003, very, very severe rain leading up to the end of what the Buddhist people call the end of the rains retreat.
Right.
On the last day, it rained continuously, next day, no rain at all. And then after that, no rain. This is the strange thing in this northeast. So, but flood had come.
Exactly.
So we faced some difficulties.
Right.
But you also overcome them because when some difficulty arises, you think, how can I deal with this? Let's try this, let's try this. And you keep trying. I remember Polak said to me once, when I was in village, and lots of frustrations were happening. Lots of frustrations. And he said to me, I've observed that what you do is if you can't do the thing you plan to do, you try something else. You keep looking for something you can do. You don't just, if the task today is to do this thing and you can't do it, you don't just sit there. You find a new thing, find it in front of us.
So in linguistic analysis, I have seen you record some folk songs, prayer songs, and many other those things. What are the roles of those oral or folk?
Yeah, so this is a good question. Do these songs have much role in understanding the grammar of language? Well, the answer is yes, absolutely, because language is more than just everyday speaking. Now, everyday speaking is often the hardest thing to study, because when people do everyday speaking, they do it quickly, they are interrupted, they talk over on top of each other, they talk softly, they leave out words, all these things that make it very difficult to analyze. And the language of storytelling is thus the easiest one that people mostly start basing their grammatical descriptions on. But it is also not enough, because poetics, if you like, the language of song, is an important part of a language. I mean, let us contemplate what would Assamese be like if we just completely did not have any songs of Bhupen Hazarika. His monument is just there. What would Assamese be like without Bhupen Hazarika? The answer is, it would not be as interesting as it is. So songs are important, but they're not the only thing. And that's why we need multiple scholars with different interests. So I, for example, I eat the food that is prepared for me and enjoy it, but I'm not primarily a food interested person. So I won't usually go and sit in the kitchen and discuss what is this called, what is this called, how do you do this, how do you make this? But we need to do that. We also need to understand the process of making clothes,
Exactly.
how you do the weaving, what is the name of each different part. Now, did we do something along those lines when we were together in Balikota? Was that the time when they wove that big monk's robe? Were you there for that? They were in the garden and all the ladies making the big robe together. Did you
I missed
that?
that.
You missed that one. But I seem to remember we did talk about weaving together. And I'd like to be more interested in it, but that's why you need multiple people. That's why I'm pleased that some of the papers at this conference are looking again at some of the things that I have discovered in language or researched in language in the past, and may come up with some, one hopes, answers that tell us new things or expand.
Right, so I have one more question.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are some languages in Northeast India which are like developing, and they are very curious to enrich their literature, their language policies and all. So it's like the Masas, Boros and several other communities. So what suggestion would you like to put forward for them?
Okay, so here's a question. So you will be having a mobile phone, mine is over there, out of reach. What shall we call this thing? Cell phone? So in Australia we call them mobile phone, or mobiles simply. I think in some countries in English they call cell phone. Here, what do you normally call that thing? Mobile. So, and when you speak about it in Boro, what do you call it?
We call it mobile.
Mobile. So this is called borrowing. This is called taking the word from somewhere else and borrowing it. And you don't give the word back, it's really... But the point is, some might say, well, let's create a word for this in Boro language. Good idea, but maybe people won't use it. And ultimately, you can have that situation, like, for sure there are words in Assamese for TV, television, but many people will simply say TV. So the creation of new words for the things that are coming into our society, that's an interesting topic. But actually, I'm reminded as I'm talking about this, I have beside me, and maybe you can't see it on the video, but this, in Assamese you would call this as almari, right?
Almari, yeah.
Now this comes from an Arabic word which is pronounced almira, which itself comes from a Roman or Latin word, I believe. So this is a classic example. I point to it because it is simply here. It gets nativized, right? Everybody probably thinks almari is an Assamese word, and it is.
It is.
But its history is that it has come from other places. It's come from Arabic via Persian, and the Arabs got it from the ancient Romans, etc.
It's never wrong at all.
It's never wrong. It's never wrong. So it's perfectly okay for people in Assamese to decide we'll make up a completely new Assamese word for this thing. We don't want to call it an almari anymore. But people will continue to call it almari, even whatever you do.
So yeah, we come to that.
But you can. But yes, there's plenty of room for language to update itself into the modern era. There's a lot of things to talk about that we didn't have before. But community will itself decide. And language change is led by young people.
Exactly.
And it is the young people who will decide whether the words are used or not. And whom you are no longer amongst the group of young. It is the ones much younger than you even who are doing these things. That's true.
So we have come to the end almost. So your future plan in linguistics.
Well, okay. So for me at this stage, I have really three main things that I very much hope to do. So one is to properly archive everything I've ever collected. Photographs, videos, audio, to archive it properly and also make available.
Right.
And that's two different things. That means two different locations. One, archive. Two, online somewhere where it's easy to access.
Right.
Second thing, a grammar of the Thai Ahom language as I found it in the manuscripts when doing the translations I did with Chai Chun, Kamding Yor Thai and others. I want to complete that. I think I should do it, and then other students will take that and build on it, I hope. I also want to complete the half-completed grammars of some of the Thangsha varieties and keep working on those, and then help as much as possible communities to do the things they need to do and they have decided are important.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be, for example, whatever it is, say the Thai Ahom community, whatever they think is important, I will give. If they ask me for an opinion, I'll give it. It's a very big community, so you have a lot of different opinions.
Right.
I'll give it.
Yeah, that's great. So now, many young scholars have come up now from different communities. It's a good sign.
Very.
So, I want your view and suggestion for these young scholars.
Well, I think the first thing is the methods and kind of traditions of linguistics, the way in which we study sound systems, we study the sounds, we study the sound systems, we learn about the structures of language, we learn about the different usages of language and the variety and variation of language. These methods are good. They can, of course, be modified and improved on, but they are basically good. So, for example, understanding what are the set of contrastive sounds in language.
Right.
The set of sounds that if you change them, the meaning changes. This is required to understand language at every level. And the sort of traditional method of what we call, phoneme inventories, this remains required. So the first thing is people have to learn thoroughly those skills. So during this conference, for example, a couple of scholars have made reference to the Thai languages.
Yeah.
And in my talk yesterday, I showed one slide that contained a picture of a chart, what is called the tone boxes. And essentially, in order to study Thai languages properly, you have to understand that thing. And if you don't, you have to find a way of learning it. So there are certain things which are basic. There are features, for example, if you're a Boro speaker, there are features of the, whether you call it Trans-Himalayan or Tibeto-Burman or whatever you call the language family, on the Boro Garo within that, there are features of that you need to understand.
Exactly. So, thank you, Dr. Stitten, for your time and wonderful and very important insights you have shared with me today. And we look forward to, staying in touch with you, in the language documentation projects for the non-distant languages.
Yeah.
And thank you very much.
Thank you.